Tonight, an exclusive report from Apple Valley News Now's Emily Goodell. 45-year-old Gianni Alimo is accused of killing his girlfriend, 37-year-old Heather England. Court documents obtained by Apple Valley News Now show less than 12 hours before the fatal shooting, Judge Jared Boswell allowed Alimo to be released from jail without bail after he was accused of crashing into a car England was riding in. In court, Judge Boswell issuing a no-contact order, Alimo saying he would stay away from her, and Judge Boswell telling Alimo he, quote, takes him at his word. Now questions remain why a man with a violent criminal history was put back on the street.
We reached out for help, and you let him out, and not even 10 hours later, he killed her. After the cops sat in my yard and told my sister how much in danger she was. So I know the cops, they went to bat for her. They did. Why on God's green earth that judge ever released him on pretrial? Not even bail, but pretrial? I'll never for the life of me understand that.
Apple Valley News Now's Emily Goodell says this exclusive story has a lot of moving parts, and it's not exactly as cut and dry as it seems.
I spoke to Brandy over the phone as she was getting her niece and nephew ready for the day, which for them included a visit to the funeral home. Through our conversation, I learned more about Heather through the people who loved her most.
We've been together since my mom died, and honestly never pictured my life without her. And she was just a great person. She had just this big laugh. Big, beautiful laugh. I miss Mom. I miss Mommy too. I saw it.
Research shows most abusive relationships don't start off that way. It's a cycle of power and control, a build-up to an explosion to promises of never again. Brandy says her sister's relationship was no different.
Believe it or not, she did love this guy because for the first 5 months, it was, that I know of, it was decent.
Until it wasn't. Brandy says his behavior became increasingly erratic.
It kept getting worse and worse. He kept coming in my house when I was at work that day. He thought she was hiding a man in the closet. He always thought he was hiding men, and we're like, where are you getting this from?
The beginning of the end when Alimo rammed his vehicle into Heather's car when she and her sister tried to drive away from him, totaling her car and damaging a vehicle parked nearby. Brandy says her sister hadn't wanted to call the police before, but this time wanting to protect her sister, she made the call herself.
And I was just like, I just want a no contact order, that way I can keep them away from my home and these kids. I honestly never thought she was in danger like that.
Brandy says she made a second 911 call a few hours later after Alimo reportedly tried to rip the air conditioner out of Heather's window.
I heard my sister, she started running and she's, Brandy, help me.
That information wasn't mentioned in court documents, but I spoke to YPD Sergeant Ryan Yates, who says officers were aware of the connection and treated the second call as a continuation of the first. Brandy says they repeatedly tried to warn Heather not to trust Alimo.
She was concerned trying to help him. She wanted to help him, and it cost her her life.
Just hours after Alimo was released from jail, Heather ended up at Alimo's house, texting her sister help.
But I called her, and I could hear in her voice that she was very scared. And she was telling him to just please let her go. And I could hear him yelling, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. I was just telling her, I'm on my way. I'll bring the cops. I'm coming.
According to court documents, Alimo's cousin witnessed him shooting Heather multiple times as she tried to run away from him outside Alimo's Wapato home. Alimo then ran, facing a nationwide arrest warrant for aggravated first-degree murder domestic violence. A 4-day-long manhunt coming to a head after police say Alimo took over a vehicle without permission during a traffic stop and held the owner against his will as Alimo led deputies on a high-speed chase, ending in a crash.
The defendant led law enforcement on a high-speed chase, as indicated in the report, through the freeway and through the city of Yakima, endangering the lives of both law enforcement and civilians present on the road.
Less than a day into his stay at the Yakima County Jail, corrections staff say Alimo had already broken out a window, through a wall, and made threats.
That he would, quote, stick someone, and that he's going away for life and he doesn't care.
Judge Sonia Rodriguez-True granting the state's request to hold Alimo without bail.
This is a unique and extraordinary situation, but I have absolutely no doubt that any release of Mr. Alimo, any conditions of release, that other people will lose there's a high likelihood of people will lose their lives.
Later court hearings revealing details about Alaimo's violent past, including a more than decade-long prison sentence for assault, leaving some to ask how he ended up getting released.
In hindsight, I think it was I wouldn't say an error, but I would say that maybe thinking of someone with this typical criminal history or this high of a criminal history on this particular individual, maybe pretrial wasn't the best option, but I don't make those particular decisions. Judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and pretrial make those decisions.
Based on interviews and court documents, it appears two factors played into that decision. One, that they were initially looking at lower nonviolent offenses.
The investigators in this particular case from Yakima Police Department indicated mischief and reckless endangerment. As we evaluated the next 24 hours, we decided to charge crimes that were greater in severity, and most notably 2 counts of second-degree assault, which are Class B felonies.
And two, the lack of recent criminal history in the public safety assessment done by pretrial services.
A couple of the factors they talk about, whether there's been violent criminal history from a certain period of time or a certain date in terms of their date of birth.
The court did know Alaimo had multiple previous convictions for violent offenses, as well as escape and bail jumping. Plus, Alaimo listed as a documented gang member and police requesting high bail due to his criminal history. The state recommending $1,000.
The deputy prosecutor made a decision on that case, and under those circumstances, and I stand by the decision made by the deputy prosecutor, and I'm accountable to the community for that decision.
A major factor of the assessment finding no current violent offenses, pending charges, or failures to appear in the past 2 years. According to the transcript of the court hearing, Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Brian Russell saying the defendant here, Your Honor, has an extensive criminal history, although there's a sharp drop-off in about 2010, so the criminal behavior is less of late. Attorney Joel Christensen, representing Alaimo, noting the recommendation of pretrial release at level B largely due to that drop-off. Quote, Mr. Alaimo has not had any criminal activity for the better part of 15 years. These allegations are definitely out of the blue for his conduct for the better part of 2 decades now. Judge Jared Boswell saying, quote, 2010 to now looks like there's been a change of character. Boswell agreeing to release Alaimo, putting in place no contact orders for Brandy and Heather. Asking him, quote, are you going to have a problem with that if I release you? Alaimo saying, no, not at all, not at all. It's definitely not worth going to jail over. Boswell, quote, I agree with you 100%, and so I'm taking you for your word. The fact that Alaimo was in prison for over 11 years due to multiple assault convictions and was only released in December wasn't included in the recommendation by pretrial services or mentioned in the transcript of the hearing.
So we do the best we can as a collective system to try to do what's best in every particular case. And sometimes we have tragic situations such as this, and we work all collectively very hard to avoid these type of situations always. But decisions have to be made, and decisions were made in this case, and we have to deal with the consequences of what happened within the next 24 hours involving Mr. Alaimo.
YPD Lieutenant Chad Janice says recidivistic violent repeat offenders like Alaimo are a major concern for the Yakima Domestic Violence Coalition. He says just in the past 12 months alone, they've had 89 suspects released, then rearrested in intimate partner violence cases, for a total of 198 arrests.
Rearrest in domestic violence is really the driving issue on community violence, and so that's what the DV Coalition, what our daily staffing is set out to do, and do everything we can to reduce the number of times that we have to rearrest an individual.
Janice says it's an economic issue because each new arrest means more money spent on prosecuting.
There's also that public safety piece of rearresting somebody, which puts the community and the victim, as we know these are pervasive incidents that happen inside of homes, at risk when that person is released back into the community.
Brandy now facing a life watching her 16-year-old niece and 4-year-old nephew grow up without their mom.
She loved hard, so if she loved you, she was so loyal and loving and dedicated to you, and she was such a wonderful mom. Her kids were her, and they're grieving.
Don't cry.
I'm not crying.
Don't laugh.
Okay. Okay, baby, I'll laugh.
For them and for her sister, who no longer can. Again, this is a complicated story which continues to develop, and we'll keep you updated as we learn more on our website, applevalleyNewsNow.com. Reporting from the Yakima newsroom, Emily Goodell, Apple Valley News Now.
Thank you, Emily. The family of Heather England does have a GoFundMe set up to help with funeral expenses. The viewing ceremony is set up for Tuesday, September 17th from 4 to 7 p.m. and her funeral service is Wednesday, September 18th at 1 p.m. at Brookside Funeral Home. England leaves behind 2 children. According to the Yakima County Auditor, Judge Jared Boswell is up for re-election along with 7 other Yakima County Superior Court judges. Boswell was appointed by Governor Inslee in 2023 to fill a vacancy left by a retired judge. He is a former Yakima County prosecutor. Yakima County Superior Court judges are elected to a 4-year term and will appear on the ballot in November's general election.